Arcane Studios' latest title, Deathloop, is a spectacular balancing act. It's got next-gen graphics, but never skimps out on style. The gunplay is aggressive, but also requires strategy in the context of each level's design. It's backed by layers of ambition, but nothing ever feels gimmicky. And above all, it's fun as hell. It begins and you wake up stranded on the shores of Black Reef Island. The man you play as hasn't a memory in his mind, but you learn his name is Colt. After reorienting himself, Colt soon finds out that his objective is to find and kill 8 designated targets, or visionaries. One of them is an assassin who consistently hunts him down, the other 7 being spread out across the island's 4 districts, throughout morning, noon, afternoon, and evening. Sounds simple enough, right? It will take some trial and error and a handful of in-game days, but otherwise it should be easy. The catch is, there is only one day that repeats itself like Groundhog Day. Whenever Colt gets killed or makes it to dusk without fulfilling his goal, he gets sent back to dawn. In spite of what this structure may seem to imply, this is by no means a roguelike. In a game like Enter the Gungeon, while your initial lack of knowledge and skill may make getting to the end on your first run unlikely, it is possible. For the majority of Deathloop, however, it is impossible to achieve a successful run. It begins with the targets spread out across place and time, and because there are only 4 times of day which transition between each other whenever you leave an area, you can initially only kill 4 in one go. Most of the game entails detective work, discovering passcodes and fiddling with computers to cause butterfly effects, which will lead to multiple visionaries being in the same place at the same time. This means that in the end, there is only one correct route to beating the game. The other more obvious reason for why this could not be considered a roguelike is that the level design isn't procedurally generated. It remains constant throughout your entire playthrough. This might sound like a recipe for tedium, but it surprisingly never makes the game annoyingly repetitive. First and foremost, each district is given a different context based on time of day, which not only means distinct atmosphere and enemy placement, but changes in exploration. The levels themselves are rather expansive, but not easy to get lost in. They're meticulously crafted, although you can use careful footwork in certain areas to get to your destination much faster than usual, making you feel like you've outsmarted the game despite it all being very deliberate. In discovering these routes, you not only give yourself more options, but quicker and easier ones as well. There's also just a general sense of precision that develops the longer you play. Knowing where enemies, hazards, and shortcuts are from previous runs, so you can intuitively go in guns a-blazing, contributes to a cutthroat momentum that just isn't present in a game like Hades, where so much is random. However, Deathloop is far more similar to a game like Hades than Enter the Gungeon, as there are persistent upgrades to help you achieve your goal. These come in the form of guns, which you will find on nearly every enemy's corpse, upgrades for these guns and Colt, which pack minor improvements such as reduced recoil and quieter movement, and game-changing powers you get from killing visionaries, such as invisibility and teleportation. From the beginning, you also have a weak starter gun, a knife, a grenade, and a hacking device. While the 4 items I just mentioned cannot be taken away, enemy droppings will disappear once you die, or when the day ends. That is, unless you infuse them with a currency that can be randomly found throughout levels, allowing them to survive the loot. All of the items and abilities add to a greater sandbox experience. Powerful guns and abilities provide more options in terms of both combat and exploration. You can also hack turrets, allowing you to get places quicker. Your knife and your kick don't make any sound, so they prevent other enemies from hearing you. Stealth was a playstyle I didn't frequently engage in, although I would often camp behind an object and shoot enemies as they came towards me, which was usually a viable approach. This did highlight the less than stellar AI, but it's far more obvious when you're going for actual stealth. The artificial intelligence can be wildly inconsistent. Although every enemy in a 5-foot radius can hear a gunshot, you can also sneak up behind 2 of them, kill one, and the other won't notice. To some extent, this may be intentional. It makes stealth a more viable strategy, although it isn't that quick or fun. However, it doesn't have any real disadvantages, especially since there are no time limits. In playing more aggressively, I would often be frustrated knowing there was a much easier way to go about completing a mission, and constantly getting gunned down by a horde of enemies was practically my decision. That said, you do come back to life twice after your health bar depletes, so I was usually able to rethink my approach after it didn't work without being sent back to the main menu. Furthermore, those adrenaline pumping moments when there are 30 enemies on your tail and you just keep sliding and aimlessly shooting to get away while knifing down everyone on your path make it all worth it. Plot-wise, Deathloop doesn't impress, neither does it disappoint. The story is told on generic terms, but it's carried by its campiness. Colt is a typical first-person shooter protagonist, but the game seems to acknowledge that with his excessive swearing. Juliana, the assassin on the move and the main villain, constantly taunts him over radio intercom. She also serves as a pain in the ass whenever she shows up in an area and prevents you from leaving until you hack an antenna. The other 7 visionaries are also given depth through voice recordings and text messages, and while that means they should be easily forgettable, they also have over-the-top attributes that make them memorable. The story is definitely the game's least consequential factor, but still takes away next to nothing. Deathloop is the kind of AAA project that's rare to see. It's a first-person shooter that demonstrates real passion between exciting gunplay, versatile and varied level design, a unique premise that is absolutely not a gimmick, and a lurking vibe of exuberance.